Prior to my near-death experience, I'd been exposed to black mold for months in the California home I shared with my husband and kid. I had pneumonia and was traveling between my parents' home in Santa Clara County and my residence in Monterey County at the time. At this point, no doctor had diagnosed or considered my problems. When I returned home, I would rehabilitate in Santa Clara County, only to relapse in Monterey County. I eventually moved to Santa Clara County. My near-death experience occurred at that time. At night, I was losing consciousness. The paramedics would arrive, provide first aid, and transport me to the emergency room. I'd be stabilized and released. On the third round of the repeating experience, the near-death experience occurred. My son dragged me approximately 15 to 20 feet to the wall phone, where he dialed 911. They dispatched firefighters and paramedics. They also dispatched the Delta Squad, the city's police team in charge of investigating any death circumstances. My son has been the most knowledgeable about each account. He was 17 years old at the time. He claims that they injected my heart practically quickly, followed by the paddles. On several occasions, my heart was jolted. I don't recall how many times this happened, nor do I recall the protocol. Throughout, oxygen was supplied. An aside here that's unique to my experience. The fire captain would listen in his unit and rush over to my son. He arrived in casual dress, sporting blue pants and a sweater, complete with slippers on this specific occasion. My own experience is as follows. First, let me state that the concept of pleasant emotions does not apply here. I was furious because I understood exactly what was going on. My first memory was of being in a darkness tunnel, similar to many photographs I've seen of deep subterranean tunnels in New York City. The lighting was poor. I was conscious of low-volume conversation around me, as well as the bustle of groups and individuals walking past me. They were all different ages. I refused to concentrate. The entire terrain was cast in gray tones. I learned to glance down on my feet first to get my bearings through the former life regression activities. I looked down and concentrated on my feet. I had no shoes on. I focused my attention on my feet in order to gain a better understanding of my current circumstances. This seems to take a few moments. When I looked up, I noticed folks walking approximately 5 feet away. The tunnel was roughly 75 feet tall in the middle and about 30 feet broad. A man came into view at that point and moved about 2 to 3 feet in front of me at a 30-degree angle from a starting place perhaps 10 feet distant. He had the appearance of a 1940s gangster. He had a long pointed nose. He had a white wall hairstyle and a face that only his mother could love, as the saying goes. He donned a felt hat that was pulled down in the style of the day. He looked at me, swerved away, and continued walking. He was dressed entirely in gray, right down to his cuffed slacks. He was terrified, enraged, and hostile. I took a peek about me. The tunnel was enormous. Everyone was moving from left to right. I was up against the tunnel's wall. Nobody was near me. I became aware that I too was moving, albeit with less conviction and at a considerably slower pace, with stops and starts. Then I noticed that the top third of the tunnel was filling with light from a position further down the tube. The light did have an eternal air about it. As it appeared across the tunnel ceiling, it became a gorgeous, vivid butter yellow. I was desperate to get out of there. My next memory is of a dark room or a place that felt like a room. Dark, pitch black. I'm acutely aware that I'm not alone. I also don't feel fully integrated as a physical entity. I'm not sure about my form. There's a fierce battle going on here. I refuse to decorporate, so to speak. There's a heated debate going on between me and at least 2 other creatures. I can't see them. Their presence, however, is palpable. It is difficult to say in this body. I begin repeating an incantation that my therapist taught me, and that she insisted Catholic priests use while executing exorcisms. I recognize how bizarre and stupid this sounds. I can only imagine how many weird items are repeated in this quiz. At first, I could hardly get anything out. I did it several times. The scene in front of me as I awoke in my mother's kitchen was telling. I was shoved up against the wall. The gurney was raised as high as possible so that it could be pushed. I was strapped in, completely covered, and blanketed in blankets. A group of 4 paramedics, 4 fire rescue workers, the Delta Squad policewoman, the fire chief, and my son stood a few steps away, speechless. They were apparently about to declare me dead when I began shouting my incantation. I recall coming to consciousness while reciting this. I had no idea I'd been yelling. It was difficult for me to get the words out. I was let out after they all greeted me individually. I chastised the Delta Squad employee for not removing her sunglasses. I'm sure she was hiding behind those spectacles, relieved from this weird encounter. The room merely became more visible. A strong arm was wrapped around my son's shoulders, comforting him. I requested that the chief accompany my son until everyone had left. The paramedics took control at this point. 4 young men in their 20s were present. When they arrived to the ambulance, they all wanted to talk to me at the same time. Except for one. I recall all of the expressions of uncertainty. The driver was a huge, muscular guy with a broad grin on his face. "Put the lady up here by me," he murmured, patting the back of his seat. He then asked if they could take a minute or two to tell me about their rescue stories. They had apparently never seen anything like it. I was about to be covered up, my face, when I began yelling a prayer. The paramedics and firefighters all leapt and began cursing. They were dumbfounded as they listened to my incantation. I went from silence to outburst, from absent to very present. The driver assured me that I would be writing an anthology of the stories they told for years to come. I don't reveal the specifics of my incantation. It does, however, need acknowledging the Trinity, a blue flame, and a sword. I also know the incantation dates back before the advent of organized religion. I'm not sure how reciting it helped me. I only know they all heard me that night in my mother's kitchen. Reflecting, I realized that I had to battle, struggle, and not succumb to the experience. Scientifically, I can't picture my experience being anything more than a yam. The transitions I went through had awareness gaps. The feelings were overwhelming, with a strong want to say. I recall the tunnel vividly, the feelings emitted by those walking past me, speaking in hushed tones, some comforting one another, calm reverence and terror. There was never any wonder or joy from anyone. Individuals and groups passed through the tunnel. I've seen images of tunnels that looked just like the one we were in. Maybe some tunnels have happier versions of what I was going through. There was no happiness or joy present. I was sent to Stanford Hospital. I was diagnosed with low arterial oxygen levels. I was on an oxygen machine almost constantly for a full year. I still utilize oxygen on occasion. It's been 7 years. I visited several near-death experiences and was profoundly disappointed. In a fit of insomnia, I came across the webpage tonight. I'm convinced that I had an out-of-body experience. My eldest child holds a PhD in biological anthropology. She would like to say that the entire experience was created by my brain, that all near-death experiences are nothing more than brain activity. My son has not revealed much about himself over the years, perhaps until the last year or two. At that point, he corroborated what the paramedics said. He's also quite good at recalling things. He had modest post-traumatic effects that he's presently processing. I'm grateful to be alive and in this body. 5 months ago, my first grandson was born. I want to be around to support my kid with his college education and to pursue my dreams of working in the healing arts. I'm grateful for this opportunity. My hope is that this experience will provide information that will be useful in some way. Thank you very much.